It was an off day for the Dodgers as a team. It was a travel day for almost the entire Dodgers organization, including Dodgers radio announcer Steven Nelson, who got to New York. And first thing he did when he got to his hotel room was sit down and talk with me. We had a great talk. So this episode is a live episode, but it will mostly be us watching my conversation with Steven together. I'll be hanging out in the chat with all of you while we watch that. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Sunday evening on this day off between games 2 and 3 of the World Series. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Excuse me. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio. Vince is on an airplane right now on his way to New York. But Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And today we kind of are insiders because we're talking with Steven Nelson. First, I got to tell you, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And with that said, like I said, Vince is on a plane to New York. Steven Nelson flew with the Dodgers organization to New York earlier today, and then we sat down and talked for about a half hour. So that's this episode. I am going to jump right in and share with you the first chunk. I will interrupt a couple times to read a couple ads, and the rest of the time I will be sitting in the chat talking with you guys about my conversation with Steven. So here we go. All right, special treat, Dodger fans. I am joined by my good friend, Steven Nelson, Dodgers, sometimes TV broadcaster. There is no Dodgers TV broadcast in the postseason, so he is the Dodgers radio play-by-play guy, been doing the postseason with Rick Monday. And I've mentioned several times, Steven, here on this podcast, and I've mentioned you personally. I've heard a lot of your voice this October during the NLCS. I was on vacation where there was no TV or internet. And so I was sitting in my car outside the cabin we were staying in, listening to you on Sirius XM for games 3, 4, and 5 of the NLCS. And I got to tell you, man, I've always loved listening to baseball on the radio. I grew up with Vin Scully on the radio, and it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know. How old are you, Steven?
I'm 35.
Okay, so a lot younger than me. But, you remember Vin and how Vin would do what he would do the first 3 innings as a simulcast,
right?
And then he'd go to 4 through 6 on the radio, and then come back for 7 through 9 on TV. And so after the 3rd inning, he'd say, "Ross will be along in a minute," to call in Ross Porter. And my grandpa, we'd be sitting in my grandpa's garage watching the game on TV. And when Vince said, "Ross will be along in a minute," my grandpa would say, "No, he won't." And he'd turn down the TV and turn on the radio. So, and then after the 6th inning, we'd turn the radio down and turn the TV back up. So we got Vin for all 9 innings. But, one of the things that always, and don't worry, this isn't going to be a whole conversation about why aren't you as good as Vin Scully. I'm sure you've had that conversation plenty of times. But calling on the radio is a different thing that Vinny was amazing at. And you mentioned to me, you haven't really done radio since college. How has that adjustment been for you?
Well, first and foremost, great to finally do this with you. I was, one of the cool moments of the season was running into you in person, in the flesh, at the stadium. A couple months ago now.
It was the day that Ohtani hit his 42nd or 43rd homer.
Right, so. Right. The measly 42nd.
That was a long time ago.
A long time ago. I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, you're right. The last time that I had done baseball on radio, I was still a student at Chapman University, and I love my Panthers to death, and I loved my time at Hart Park in Orange, California. to go from that to now, doing Dodgers baseball in October.
Are you saying Chapman University is lower profile than the World Series?
Hey, I would never disparage the good name of a SCIAC powerhouse like Chaptown like that. But it is just a totally different beast. And so, trying to, that cliche is like, it's just like learning to ride a bike again, right? Getting back on the bike. I was like, well, I never really learned how to ride the bike in the first place because I was a college student. So it's definitely been learning in the fire, and I'm just so grateful to Mo and Dwayne McDonald, our producer. Basse has been amazing, and even Charlie, as he has gone through just an absolute hellish year. He has been so encouraging to me, and that's something that I'll be eternally grateful. So I apologize that you were stuck with me on your vacation. That sounds like an awesome vacation, though, to unplug from the world like that.
Yeah, if it wasn't mid-October.
I wish I could have. I wish that AI could have given you Vin's voice on your vacation as opposed to being stuck with me. But yeah, it's definitely been a heck of a ride this year.
That's awesome. No, it was great. And another moment that I was recently listening to you for was actually yesterday. I was down in Southern Utah for my son's baseball tournament. I was able to watch game 1 of the World Series on TV. Game 2, my son had a game at the same time playing for the tournament championship. So I took my laptop to the field with me. They did win. He drove in the winning run even. So
what?
Yeah, maybe in the segment after this on my live episode when I'm playing our interview, maybe I'll play the video of my son's game-winning hit.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
But thanks. But I took my laptop to the field with me, so I had the game on my laptop while I'm doing Game Changer on my phone because I'm the official scorer for my son's team. And hardest thing in the world is I'm barely smart enough to remember, okay, pitches that happen in person get tracked in Game Changer. Pitches that happen on the laptop don't get tracked in Game Changer. I'm about to put, ball 4. Wait. Oh, that was Juan Soto who walked.
Yeah, that is a stressful scene you're painting right now. The amount of
it was crazy. As if game 1 wasn't stressful enough,
Oh my gosh.
But we're gonna get to game 1 in a minute. But game 2, the game ended, my son's game, and we then drove back to our rental house. And so we listened to you on the radio for the 15-minute drive back to the rental, which happened to be when the guy who won both your and my hot Dodger bracket, Shohei Ohtani, tried to steal second base and injured himself. And I got to tell you, you painted that picture perfectly for somebody who couldn't see what was going on. And my son and I, like you mentioned, like the stadium went silent. The air was sucked out of our car. My son and I were listening to this game, and just so you painted that picture really well. How relieved were you today to find out that, he's okay?
So here's another scene for you. I'm flying in with, the team was commuting on Sunday to come to New York. And so, myself, Jose Mota, we were sitting in the rows next to each other. And then, we're surrounded by a bunch of Dodgers employees, because, the whole family's basically come out to New York to support the Dodgers for these next few games. And, I had seen the report from Carl Ravitch about what, Doc had said regarding Shohei's status, and Mota and I were like, that's great. 20 minutes later, a member of the flight crew got on the horn and was like, hi, everybody. Hope we're having a good flight. I just want to pass along some news. Dave Roberts has said Shohei Ohtani is expected to play in game 3. And the plane erupted into cheers and fist pumping. It was the exact opposite scene that we saw at Billy's Sports Bar in the Bronx when that actually went down in game 2. So yeah, I think that about sums it up. Just the relief and the excitement. Now, not totally out of the woods, right? Because you don't know how bad it is.
it's a pain tolerance thing. We don't know how much, is it going to bother him, so.
Right. For Cody Bellinger, it was a pain tolerance thing. Right. And then he showed no signs the next game of, having much intolerance as he went deep after that happened. Right. But now these are not the same things. We're not looking at the MRIs or the images together. Right. We don't know.
I'll be right back with more from Steven. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action with over 10 million active users. Sorry, I've got this banner rolling across. I need to take it off real quick. There we go. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Way, but at the very least, it wasn't, the worst case scenario, which we all feared in the moment, which the only thing I can compare it to was when Mookie got hit on the hand on Father's Day. But then this is the World Series. So
that's June.
In that moment, you knew this is bad because Mookie doesn't show pain like that. But there's still a lot of the year left and time for him to come back. This is this is game 2 of the World Series. The Dodgers aren't yet done with this game 2, and you don't know if you're going to have them for the rest of the series. So, to kind of put all that together, the moment when Shohei slid to then finding out, Sunday afternoon, evening that, he's going to be back at some point in the series is, obviously a massive exhale for anybody who wears Dodger blue.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other similarity was maybe Freddie, the 4th to last game of the season, rolling his ankle. Yeah. And I'll never forget, because Mookie's standing on second base and just looking over, and he's got his hand up to his face, and just everybody, seeing Freddie go down like that was a very similar thing. Obviously Shohei's the MVP. Shohei is, there's not many people in the world who can say, yes, I'm clearly a better baseball player than Freddie Freeman. Shohei is one of the few people who can, but Freddie is very, very, very good, very important to this Dodgers team. So that was a similar thing. And seeing Freddie this postseason struggling, you talk about the plane erupting. We're going to talk about game 1 now. I was in a rental house down in St. George, Utah, and we had all of my son's teammates over. There's a dozen 13, 14-year-old kids there playing in the pool and watching the game. And we've got the game on in the living room, and I'm stressing out. I'm clutching a pillow because that's what I do when I'm stressed in the postseason. and the boys had come in from the pool, and they go into the theater room, and they're watching the game too. So the adults are watching the game in the living room. The kids are watching the game in the theater room. And when Freddie hit that grand slam, the entire house erupted, just like you're talking about the airplane. My son was worried that because we're just watching on YouTube TV. So when you're streaming, it's is one of us going to be 4 seconds ahead, but it was simultaneous. The whole house erupted all at once as the stadium erupted, and you erupted. And, and I was obviously, I was watching on TV. So, but I didn't hear Joe's call. Joe's call was iconic. I didn't hear it because we were screaming, I was throwing my clutch and pillow across the room, and, but I listened to Joe's call later, and then I listened to yours. And I told you this, Stephen, you said you're 35. In that moment, you sounded 13, like one of 13 boys in just one point. When your voice cracked saying the phrase World Series, I know you didn't do it on purpose. Nobody would choose to have their voice crack on a national broadcast.
No, not
but but it was perfect. It because it captured the emotion, and your job as a Dodgers broadcaster is not a homer. Yeah, and you and I've had this conversation too. You're not a
Right.
homer, but clearly, it's Dodger fans. Anybody listening to this is because they chose to listen to the Dodgers broadcast. There's the national broadcast. There's the Spanish broadcast. There's the Yankees broadcast. People listening to you are Dodger fans, and so you are portraying that for Dodger fans as a Dodger fan, which you are, and it captured it perfectly. Tell me what it was like for you in the moment.
Well, thanks for saying it. There's a lot there. First and foremost, I have a luxury that Joe does not. And I know that there are fans out there who have kind of been giving him too hard a time during this postseason for, not having the Dodgers backs enough. They want more homerism. That Joe does not have that luxury. It is as the voice of Major League Baseball on Fox, the voice of the World Series, to cover it objectively and call each moment as its own thing for the world, no matter what color you wear. And so I am afforded some more leeway in how much of my, heart and soul that I can bear on the air. And so, I definitely didn't do a good job of holding the reins in that moment. But shoot, as one of my buddies, Mike Farron, who's works for MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM, and he's like, if you can't lose your stuff on a World Series walk-off grand slam, then when can you? And he's absolutely right. So definitely don't regret blacking out and screaming like I did. Now, you've talked to me enough to know that I am definitely a perfectionist and way hard on myself. And so there's definitely a couple things that I wish I had done differently or better. But Freddie Freeman did all the talking for me. That is just an iconic moment that will reverberate for the rest of time through baseball history. Anybody who was born after 88, as I was born in 89, listening to, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins tell stories about where they were game 1, 1988, Dodgers A's, when Kirk Gibson, walked it off. Now we all have that moment. And that's a pretty special thing to think about. And then, I saw some chatter, about which one was more epic, which one was greater, and which is just we can't LeBron Jordan everything in sports, because it's just let those two iconic moments live as two iconic moments. You can't compare the injuries, right? Gibb didn't play after that. It was the only time you saw him in that World Series. Freddie's gone deep in back-to-back games, 4 straight World Series games in his career now, right? So he is still playing different situation, different So I that's something that didn't surprise me, but I definitely didn't enjoy seeing. It was like, who did it better? It's no, they were both freaking awesome. That's what it was.
Yeah, especially because, like you said, there's a lot of people like you who weren't even alive for Gibson. This is a moment for I was 11. I remember Kirk Gibson's home run. I have watched. I can quote you Vin Scully the entire 9th inning, and look who's coming up. All year long they looked to him to start the fire, and all year long he answered the demand. I have the whole thing memorized.
Yeah, and people there were people forget about Don's call for that one, right? There's so many any call from that moment.
And Jack Bucks was awesome too.
Jack, exactly. They all absolutely nailed it. And as for this one with Joe, I texted him because I obviously didn't hear it. And then I was doing post-game coverage for SportsCenter on ESPN. So I didn't hear any of the television highlights till I got home. And as soon as I listened to it, I texted him. I was like, "You beautiful SOB." It was simple, it was poignant, and it was perfect. And of course, Joe, because as we all do, we all overthink things. You're like, "Oh God, should I have done this or should I have done that?" But he nailed it. It was the perfect tip of the cap to the greatest to ever do it. And so, I'm
starting to think Joe Davis might have a future in this business.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think Joe D is going to be okay in this thing. With you on that.
So do you think, like, have you stopped to think about the fact that you are now tied to one of the most famous postseason moments in baseball history?
No, I don't want to think about that. I hope everybody uses Joe's. No,
You don't want other people pointing out things you should have done differently?
yeah, I mean, God, like again, no people out there. If you're thinking about doing it, trust me, I've already done it a million times over. No, I mean it's really cool. I think that's getting a bunch of texts from family and friends after the game, and it's saying the same thing. Like, why you like think about that? Like, people can be talking about that moment forever, and you got to call it. And I was like, like. Yeah, that's pretty damn special. There's no two ways about it. Like that is just that's really cool, and I just hope that didn't ruin it for too many folks out there. But yeah, I mean, now that you asked the question, I'm thinking about it. I was like, oh, damn.
All right, I ruined that for you.
No. You didn't ruin it. You put it into perspective. Because truthfully, like it's all downhill from there. You'll walk.
The good news for you, I guess, is that you are the Don Drysdale in this situation. Joe's the Vin Scully, and you are the one that people will say, and don't sleep on Steven Nelson's call. That one was really good too. And
hey, it's not. See, it's not. That's why I love you, man. Honestly, and you know what's funny is like my dad was the one who first told me. He was like, hey, like people talk about Vin, talk about Jack Buck, and like understandably so, but you should do yourself a favor, go online and go listen to Don Drysdale's call.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing that, and so I'll take that.
Absolutely. All day. Do you at least think about the fact that people were paying $1 zillion to go to that game and you got paid to watch this historic moment?
Hey, don't give away the secrets, man. Again, I'm just I've weaseled my way into this world of calling baseball games for a living and or covering sports for a living, and it's stupid. It does not work at all. And Mo and I talk about that every day on the air and off. We'll look out, especially when we're at home at Dodger Stadium, because you can't beat it. Dodger Stadium, Fenway, they're cathedrals, right? And so like anytime we're there and you see the sun going down and you've got the San Gabriel's in the distance and you look around and it's a packed house, and the postseason, you got people standing up waving the rally towels, and it's like, to steal Jim Harbaugh's line, right? Who's got it better than us? And the answer is nobody. And that's perspective that I refuse to lose as long as I'm lucky.
One more segment with Steven coming up, so please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And not just the NFL, there's still plenty of Major League Baseball to bet on if you so choose, because the Dodgers are still in the World Series. As of right now, the Yankees are favored to win Game 3. That means Dodgers are underdogs. That means since the Dodgers are going to win, you should bet on them. You look at the actual overall series odds. The Dodgers are currently minus 480 favorites to win the overall World Series. That's definitely not a risk you want to take. You're not going to make much money on that. But there are a ton of different things specific, like, for example, World Series MVP. Guess what? Freddie Freeman, no surprise, is the odds-on favorite right now at minus 125. Tommy Edman, plus 1,100. You know what? Tommy Tanks might be on track, but whatever you want to do, check it out and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And remember, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Yeah, is there anywhere in the world better than Dodger Stadium? Seriously.
No. And so, they're doing this, the World Series documentary is going to be on Apple. And so, they came into our booth and they talked to Mo and I before game one. But when I first met them, we were in the parking lot. They're like, "Hey, like, what do you do when you normally come to the stadium?" I was like, "Well, honestly, like my favorite part of the stadium, like outside the booth, I was like, we got to go to the very top." So I took them up to the very top of Dodger Stadium. I was like, one, this is like, where I first remember going to a game. And then two, it's one of the best views in sport, especially on a clear day, right? When you're sitting up there at the top and you're looking down or you're looking behind you, see downtown, but you look ahead and I mean, anybody listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. And they were like, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome!" Like, yeah, and this is my work home.
I hope you took the elevator.
So where we walked in from the lot, we just had to take one escalator up, right by that one of the team stores, right? And
the top.
At the very top. So it wasn't, and and it was early, so things weren't too crowded or too jammed. But those elevators can get jammed real quick.
At the, I'll tell you this one story. I'll let you go. It's after midnight where you are now, and long day of travel. But at the home opener, my wife's cousin was in one of the planes that did the flyover. She's in the Air Force, and so I had been given the assignment by her grandmother, my wife's 95-year-old grandmother, to make sure I got good video of Jenny flying over the stadium. And so that meant going up to the top deck. And so me and my boys made the hike up there. We were sitting in loge level and made the hike up there. Steven, you've met me. I'm not built for stairs. And like,
no, come on, dude.
Let's just say I'm glad that my memories of that game don't involve an ambulance.
Hey, may not be built for stairs, but who else can handle game changer manual input while listening to a baseball game?
And when my son's up to bat, I have to record him. So I have to keep track of the pitches in my mind so that then when I'm done recording his at bat, I can then punch him into game changer. Man, I don't have many talents, but the talents I do have, I try to do all at the same time.
You lean into the strengthts.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Steve, you talked about, as like, this all our conversation started about, doing radio, baseball and radio. And something you talked about there was, your 95-year-old, which is unbelievable. And I remember what something happened during the LCS. We were in Queens at Citi Field, and Met fan comes up to the booth because it's one of those places where there's a section right below us, similar to San Francisco Oracle Park. There's a number of places that the fans can access like that. And he handed me a card, and he's like, "Hey, like, would you mind, doing a shout out?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I read the card and the story. I was like, "Oh, this is great, Dana Point." Like, "Oh, it's not far. I'm in Orange County." So I did it. And she was a 94-year-old fan, lifelong fan, who she can't really see well anymore, and hasn't been able to for a long time. And so and she's a diehard Dodger fan. And so the way that she makes in games is by listening to them on the radio. And it really is such a beautiful responsibility to try and bring what we see, what we love, to a different kind of life. And that's such a cool challenge. It's really hard, and I've definitely caught myself at times during the year, like falling into TV habits, which, kind of turning into a spectator. I think the Tyrone Taylor catch during the LCS, that happened. I was like kind of flabbergasted at what happened. And in the moment, I was like, I did not describe that at all. So I still fall into that, but like, I definitely try to approach things as this year has gone on, like knowing that there is, hey, like you have to paint the picture. It can't be just, here's the pitch, there's a fly ball, right? It's just the adding as many. That's something Howie wrote to me, is that you have to add as many descriptors as you can. And if you do it after the play, that's fine, but you have to do it. And so anyway, you talking about your family member just reminded me of that story. So anyway, that's going to be something that I keep top of mind and try to not win the World Series for everybody.
You're doing a great job. That's funny. I that was one of the games. The Tyrone Taylor catch was one of the games I was listening to you, and I just had to, while you're talking about, I had to rack my brain, and I actually do remember now. I did yell at you for a second. But the only thing, like, you did a great job describing a catch. The only thing was it took you a minute to mention that the guy in third had tagged up and scored.
Yeah.
That was my only issue with. But so
that's a huge issue. It was a huge issue. Like I said to Mo after, like we go to break, and I'm like, Mo, that was all right. What?
But the fact is, I think it would have been more notable if the guy on third didn't score on a diving catch, and then you definitely would have mentioned. So it was, anybody who knows baseball knew the guy scored. It just, but don't beat yourself up. You like, I'm serious. I've listened to you multiple times on the radio in the last couple of weeks, and you are doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. It's something that it's not an easy thing to do, bringing a baseball game to life on the radio. You do a good job. Even just a little thing of, as a radio guy, you have to use a passive voice more often because you have to start with the thing that's most important, and that's not how you would write it. You start with the subject, and then the verb, and then what they did. But, you got to say, you do use passive voice, because the thing we heard the crack of the bat, so the thing we need to know right now is, where's the ball going, and you're doing a really, really good job of that. And you don't need my validation. You've been doing this longer than I've been, doing anything. So
I really am appreciative. I've told him, we've talked privately. So, I mean, I really do appreciate you. And, I've texted you and Vince, like, I'm a listener. Me and Vince go back some time now. We were coworkers at Bleacher Report for a number of years. And so, anyway, I appreciate your validation, and more than that, man, your encouragement, because again, me being new to this medium, like, versus you, someone who has listened to it for so many years and listened again to the greatest ever do it. And what makes a good baseball broadcast, like, that's the constructive feedback and criticism. That's what I love. Like, if fans have thoughts on things like, hey, I wish that you would do this X, Y, and Z a little bit better. Like, I love that. It's the kind of vague vitriol that, like, just like, can we narrow that focus? Steven, you suck. Okay, why? What makes me suck?
What about me sucks? It's like that.
Exactly. That'll help. That'll help.
That Flight of the Conchords song. Why? Be more constructive with your criticism.
Yeah. Great reference. Perfect reference.
Speaking of great references, this is what we're going to end on.
Okay.
You became my hero when there was I don't remember what series it was. I'm trying to remember who the players involved were. There was a Dodgers fly ball, and the ball just was under the back, the lip of the wall. Wasn't stuck because it was Dodger Stadium. There isn't room for a ball to get stuck there. It just planted there. And the opposing team tried to say, "Oh, it should be a ground rule double." Is that what it was? Oh, that's right. It was Angel.
Joe Adell. It was in the corner, right?
If you can imagine Joe Adell doing something weird on defense.
And then he was like, yeah.
And what you said was, I had to play the ball off of Frankenstein's fat foot, like the Happy Gilmore reference there. And it wasn't like, it was kind of like when Joe harkened back to Vin Scully on that call. And for me, as the attention hog, I would have been tempted to say, "You hear what I just did there, John?"
Oh,
and you didn't say, "Hey, Mo, you ever seen Happy Gilmore?" You didn't call attention to it at all. It was just a quick Frankenstein's fat foot reference. Moved on. Rick Monday probably had no idea what you were talking about.
I think I might have been with DK that day.
Yeah, I think it was actually. So, and maybe he's more of a Happy Gilmore guy. He's definitely closer to Happy Gilmore generation than Rick Monday. But
I mean,
that was
calling a game with EK is like calling it like hanging out with one of your bros. It's just a great time.
That's awesome. That was the highlight of the season for me. Shohei 50-50 was cool. Frankenstein's fat foot made the season for me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, let's go back. It's if she is gone. It's Ohtani 50-50, and it's hit this ball Frankenstein's flat foot. Again, I'll take that, Snydog. I will take that.
Steven, I have kept you longer than we agreed on. The good news is that means that this is my whole episode tonight. So that's a wonderful thing. Bad news is it's now getting closer to 12:30 where you are, and you have to call Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow. But luckily, the game doesn't start till close to midnight tomorrow night. This doing the same start time is kind of interesting when you're playing 3 time zones apart, because you have day games in LA and night games in New York, basically.
I know, 8:08 local time with extended commercial breaks. A World Series game, like, we're not getting out of the Bronx till Wednesday.
Yeah, so I'm just preparing you for tomorrow night by keeping you too late tonight. So you're welcome.
Man, I enjoyed it, man. This was I'm glad we finally got to do this, and I appreciate the time and the friendship you've given all these past couple of years, man.
Yeah, you too, and I hope to see you at the World Series Championship Parade next week. And I'm knocking on all the wood I have here while I say that.
I'm doing the same.
And but one way or another, let's talk soon.
You got it, man. Hey, you and your family be well. Congrats again to your boy.
Hey, thanks, Steve. That is it for tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Steven Nelson. I'm going to dispense with the outro stuff because this was a long episode. So Vince and I will talk to you tomorrow after Game 3 of the World Series. Thanks again.